unfortunate part of masks is they also keep you a little bit warm, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. You ready? You got sound? Got audio today. That's great. That's an inside joke. Yeah. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our campaign office, to Marv Friesen's campaign office here in Saskatoon, Riversdale. Today is day one of what we call election week. Often we look towards election day, that being October 26th. This year, I think, given the circumstances that we're faced with the COVID-19 pandemic, that we should look at election as a week-long process where we are going to the polls throughout the advanced polls, which begin today, are open 12 till 8 across this province, right through till Saturday, and then ultimately we will have election day next Monday. I'm pleased to be here in Saskatoon, and more specifically in Saskatoon, Riversdale, with our candidate, Marv Friesen. I'm Scott. I'm also Friesen on a morning like today, but that's a poor attempt at humor here this morning on the morning with first snowfall in Saskatoon. But pleased to be here with Marv Friesen. Marv has worked very hard on behalf of what he hopes to be the representative, on behalf of the people that live in Saskatoon, Riversdale. You've been out for how many months now, Marv, visiting with people, door knocking?
I started last June, so it's been about 15 months.
About 15 months on the doors here in Riversdale, asking for their support to represent them in the legislature in Saskatchewan, in this province. And Marv, I want to thank you for that effort over the course of the last 15 months. And this isn't your first run at this seat; it's your second time. And we're asking the people of Saskatoon, Riversdale, to get out, vote early in the advanced polls, and vote to support our Saskatchewan Party candidate, Marv Friesen, who is hoping to be your elected representative in the legislature post October the 26th. You will have the details of where your advanced polls are wherever you are in Saskatchewan on your voting card. You can also go to the Elections Saskatchewan website to determine who you are going to support in this election, and you can get out this week, as I said, noon till 8 until Saturday in the advanced polls across Saskatchewan. And I hope you will ask yourself the very important question, the ballot question in this election, as you enter that polling booth, is: who do you trust to recover the economy in Saskatchewan? Do you trust a Saskatchewan party with a record of growth, or an NDP party with a record of decline? Do you trust a Saskatchewan party that has worked very hard with businesses, with community members, with community organizations to ensure that we are able to address this COVID-19 pandemic? We're able to reopen our economy, reopen our communities, reopen the recreation opportunities that we have in our communities, and do so safely. Do so very safely in our community after community across the province. And who do you trust to have a vision of growth and prosperity for that next generation, for our children and generations to come, to ensure that we have every opportunity to reinvest the proceeds of that growth right back into our communities across the province? We in the Saskatchewan Party, and Marv has been part of this vision, believe in a strong recovery, and most certainly a stronger Saskatchewan. A recovery that will make life more affordable for families here in Riversdale, here in Saskatoon, and across the province. Make life more affordable by introducing a home renovation tax credit, by reinstating the active families benefit, ensuring that we are helping with the costs of children that are playing sports or other activities, and we are going to lower everyone's power bill by 10%. We are supporting and making life more affordable for this province's seniors, in ensuring that we are adding 300 home care aides to home care, as well as to our long-term care centers. We are also increasing the seniors' income plan here in the province. We are making life more affordable for our province's post-secondary students by increasing by 50% the Saskatchewan Advantage Scholarship, to lower their tuition rates and to ensure that they have every opportunity to continue with their studies here in the province. And we are fostering a strong economic recovery here in Saskatchewan by decreasing the small business tax and by investing in communities across this province with a $7.5 billion two-year capital plan that will invest in schools, will invest in hospitals, and it will invest in safer highways that connect our communities across this great province. We have put forward a plan that is fully costed. We have put forward a plan that will return the provincial finances to balance by the year 2024. The opposition, the NDP, have no such plan to put forward a costed platform. They have $4 billion in uncosted spending in their documents, and they have no plan to balance the budget on behalf of the people that they would hope to represent in this province. So I would hope that for you across this province, the choice is very clear. And I would hope for you in Saskatoon, Riversdale, that the choice is very clear. That you would get out this week or on election day. We'd encourage you to get out this week, bring your mask, go to the polling booth and support our Saskatchewan party candidate, Marv Friesen, right here in Saskatoon, Riversdale, so that he can represent what he believes is a vision for this province, yes, but also the vision that he believes that Saskatoon, Riversdale can be as a strong, vibrant community right here in Saskatchewan. Marv, myself, and our other 59 Saskatchewan party candidates across this province, we most certainly have put forward a plan for a strong recovery. We've put forward a plan for strong communities, strong families, and a much stronger Saskatchewan. So thank you very much. If there's any questions, Marv would be happy to answer them. What a brisk morning. Hello, Phil.
How's it going?
It's going well. How about you?
Good. You're obviously aware we're at a high for active cases in the province right now that we've been. Do you regret anything about the measures you've taken to restrictions in the midst of a pandemic, and specifically not implementing mandatory masks at polling booths?
Sure. The measures that we have taken here in the province have been, first of all, in close consult with Dr. Shahab and his office, as well as close consult with people right across this province through our business response team and our business response line that we have. And they're working. Where we are having challenges is when people are stepping outside of the public health recommendations and the public health laws that are in place. And most recently, yes, we have an outbreak. We have actually 2 or 3 outbreaks here in the province where people, they're really super spreader events for a province our size, where people or groups of people have stepped outside of the public health recommendations that are there. We have a few nightclubs here in Saskatoon. We have a worship service in a number of communities throughout the north. That is where the predominant bulk of the cases that we have today are. Those that are involved are being dealt with through the contact tracing and the laws that are available to them. But the numbers that we have today, and yes, they are up, they are due to groups of people, in this case, that have gone outside of the public health parameters. That has resulted in some higher cases here in the province. And again, this is a time for the vast majority, and now all of us here in the province, to really reevaluate and to look at what we are doing each and every day to ensure that we are slowing the spread of COVID-19, to ensure that we are not participating in or in any way endorsing some event that is stepping outside of the public health parameters and recommendations that are in place. We can now see what happens when people step outside of that advice. It has very, very problematic consequences.
But specifically because you're encouraging people to vote, do you regret not implementing a mandatory mask rule at polling stations?
Well, we did have masking rules in the case of worship services, which were not adhered to in this instance. We have had masking rules when you are not able to physically distance, and around some of the activities in nightclubs, which were not adhered to in these instances, where these spreader events, which are the source of our inflated numbers here today. I believe we're over 80 with the worship services in Prince Albert. We're going to see these numbers climb, probably in Saskatoon and others, due to a couple of events that we've had in nightclubs here. The numbers that we had yesterday were some of the, if not the largest, some of the largest numbers we've had on a daily increase. We're going to see some more days with fairly large numbers as we get into the secondary and tertiary spread of those large events that were not in compliance with the public health orders that are there. So what we have in place works. The masking policy that we have in place is very clear, and it works. The challenge we have is when people aren't following the public health guidelines that are in place. And so I would ask the people across this province, follow the guidelines that are in place. If you don't, there's a good chance that you are A, going to spread this virus as it is out in our communities, and B, you're going to be fined.
We're in a riding today that has traditionally been an NDP stronghold. Do you expect traditional NDP voters? Do you expect to appeal to them? Do you want them to vote for the Sask Party, or why should they?
Well, we've been appealing to Saskatchewan people, not traditional voters of any sort or any ideological view. What we have been doing is putting forward our vision for what we believe this community of Riversdale, this community of Saskatoon, and ultimately what we believe the future of our great province of Saskatchewan will look like. We feel we've put forward a credible plan that increases the affordability for all families, increases the affordability for our students, for our seniors, but also puts us in the very best position to foster a strong economic recovery here in Saskatchewan so that we can all get back to work, even while we're still dealing with this COVID pandemic, so that we would be able to recover our economy and provide every opportunity for success into the future. Marv, on what you've been hearing in your travels over the last 15 months in Saskatoon, Riversdale, do you have a comment or two that you'd like to make?
Yeah, it's been great. One of the things I love to do is door knock, and I may be one of not a lot, but I absolutely love door knocking and talking to the people and meeting the people, and even people that are not supporters are. It's great to get their opinions, because that's the way we make this province better, is listen to everybody. And I've had some great conversations and continue to have those great conversations, and it looks really great to make our community better by getting all this information. So yeah, I absolutely love doing this. Yep.
Marv Friesen is born and raised and now raising his family in the community of Riversdale and Saskatoon. Next question.
As COVID cases continue to climb, Dr. Shahab has been vocal in saying that different thresholds could be enacted if we continue to get 60 plus cases in multiple days, several days. So do you see any of that, or those increased thresholds, have kind of a worry for the election, or people coming out deterring them from voting in any way, shape, or form?
So yeah, Dr. Shahab made some comments around if we had a sustained number of days at 60 cases, climbing up to 120, he would have to look at how we would be able to subside those numbers, and we most certainly would need to. What we have here today is a few super spreader events that we're into the secondary and tertiary spread of those events that have increased our numbers quite dramatically for Saskatchewan, and relatively quite dramatically, because we have done such a good job here for over 7 months now, I guess. With respect to the election, Mr. Boda, the Chief Electoral Officer, is an independent office of the legislature, has been very thorough in the efforts that he has made to ensure that our polling stations will be safe, that our polling, there's extra advanced polling stations, for example, and we would encourage everyone to get out and exercise their right to vote, and they might want to consider visiting an advanced polling station rather than getting out on election day, just to avoid if they're concerned that there may be some crowds there on election day. So that starts today, but we have every confidence in the Chief Electoral Officer, an independent officer of the legislature that has been working very close with Dr. Shahab's office and public health to ensure that we are able to operate this election safely. They're doing so in British Columbia, and they've done so already in New Brunswick, and who knows, we may be doing so at a federal level before too long.
Is there a worry for voters who may feel sick or develop symptoms coming into election day? Because if they do end up with symptoms, they will have to isolate for those 2 weeks, which kind of puts them at a weird position when it comes to the actual physical voting. Do you have a comment on that?
As far as not being able to vote on election day because they have symptoms? Yeah. So there is, I believe, if you go to the Elections Saskatchewan website, they've made accommodations for those that, for example, may become symptomatic today and may not be able to visit one of the polling stations in person. If anyone does acquire symptoms in the next few days and may not be able to attend in person at a voting station, they should reach out to Elections Saskatchewan. They have protocols and systems in place to ensure that everyone in this province does have access to and the opportunity to cast their ballot. And a credit to Dr. Boda for the effort that he has made, not only to make this election safe, but ensure that everyone has the opportunity to access their ballot.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We're blowing snow.
Yeah. Mr. Mo, you have 4 candidates who are Indigenous or Métis. The NDP has 3 times as many candidates from these origins. It's been the same in 2000 in the previous election. Can you explain the situation? Can you tell us if it's normal, if you're doing outreach to these community? How are you trying to reach out to the Indigenous community in Saskatchewan?
We have to do outreach with all those that are underrepresented in the Legislative Assembly and underrepresented as candidates in all parties. And excuse me, that is an effort that we are constantly working on, not only with accessing and encouraging people with Indigenous backgrounds to run in the run as a candidate for the Saskatchewan Party, but also those from visible minorities as well as women. And we have these conversations often at the end of the day. Each of our parties, I believe, I'll speak for our party, I won't speak for the other parties. Our party is a very grassroots organization where anyone can put their name forward and they run in a nomination in their particular constituency, and it's the voters of that constituency that ultimately will select who is going to run for a candidate, in this case for the Saskatchewan Party. We're very proud of that grassroots organization, but this is a fair comment. We have had conversations around how do we continue to reach out and to attract and interest people that are reflective of the broader society that we now have here in the province, whether that be Indigenous backgrounds, whether that be first-generation Canadians, or whether it be women. And it's something that we're always focused on, and it's something that we need to continue to do better at. Yes.
And when we look at your platform, there's one page dedicated to your record with in regards to Indigenous people in northern communities, and there's one objective and one goal. It is actually the same objective and goal, which is include them more in the economy through resource development. What are you saying to Indigenous people who would say there's nothing for me in this platform, or they're not addressing, while the NDP, let's say, has targeted promises for Indigenous communities and the northern part of the province? What do you say to that?
Our record is very sound when it comes to involving Indigenous people in not only the governance of Saskatchewan, but in involving them in the economy of Saskatchewan. And ultimately, when you talk about true reconciliation, you talk about true independence, it needs to come with economic independence. And I would point to the strongest gaming framework in the nation of Canada that is right here in Saskatchewan, and it's a framework and an agreement between the government of Saskatchewan and our Indigenous partners, FSIN, and our tribal councils. It has created jobs right across this province, and it has created the opportunity for dollars to become available to invest in communities that are Indigenous as well as other communities. And it is a strong relationship that is benefiting sports entities, youth athletics, it's supporting communities, and it's supporting Indigenous people through careers and Indigenous communities through investment. I would point to just north of here where I live to the forest management agreements that have come forward from this government, the very positive agreements that have created the opportunity to participate in the forestry economy throughout the forest fringe. Virtually all of those agreements are with Indigenous tribal councils of some sort. We are now seeing Indigenous businesses that are operating in the forestry industry. And last summer we had all of the premiers out. For the first time, we met in a First Nations community in Big River First Nation, where we heard the story of how they have taken the profits from the forestry industry over the course of the last 10 years and reinvested those profits right into an education center in the community on reserve. And it's teaching everything in that education center from basic life skills to adult basic education right through to 4-year nursing programs, as well as welding programs and others trade programs. And there are people coming out of that education center that are going right back in to work in the forestry industry. And you can see how the circle of independence and the circle of opportunity does occur. We need to continue to work with our Indigenous communities and our Indigenous people across the province. But this is one example of how the record of this party has been strong. And as we look forward, I would look for continued success in incorporating our Indigenous people, our Indigenous communities in the broader economy of Saskatchewan. It is part, and a large part, of ultimately the success of our province.
Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Moe.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Fabulous.
You look warm.
Yeah.
I want to ask if you watched the online leaders debate last night, and if you have a message for younger voters in the province.
No, I didn't watch the debate last night, but the first message I would have for younger voters in the province, those that are attending school, is we're increasing the Saskatchewan Advantage Scholarship. The second message I would have for younger voters in this province is we have a vision of a growing and prosperous economy here in the province, an economy where you will have the opportunity to have a career in Saskatoon or maybe even in a community where you were raised. And if you think back not too many years, just a couple of decades back, or if you ask your parents, that opportunity hasn't always been here. We stagnated in population, we stagnated in opportunity here in the province for far too long. It's only the last decade where we have grown our economy, grown our opportunity to the point that we have attracted people to move to Saskatchewan from all over the world. People from over 150 countries have moved into Saskatoon and other communities. This is a great thing for our province. But even greater than that is as we grow that economy, as we grow those opportunities and we grow those careers, we provide the opportunity for all of our children, whether you're an Indigenous person from Saskatchewan, whether you're a first-generation Canadian, or whether you're someone like me, that your family has been here for a few generations. All of our children have the opportunity to choose a career here in Saskatchewan. That's the guiding light of this Saskatchewan party. That's the opportunity, the vision that we see for all of the youth that were on the call last night and all of the youth across this province that want to engage in this political process. We have a great candidate right here in Saskatoon, Riversdale, that shares that vision. He has kids that are looking to stay here, not only in Saskatoon, but in Saskatoon, Riversdale, and that's a vision I admire.
And I'm wondering if you could address the cost of care homes in Saskatchewan. How will you make life more affordable for seniors in our province?
For seniors, in our platform, first of all, we had pledged to reduce the ambulance fees and take away the ambulance fees between our healthcare centres specifically. We have pledged to increase the seniors' income plan, as well as increase the number of care aides by 300. Some of those will go into our long-term care centres. Some of those will go into our home care program to ensure that our family members are being cared for as they enter their senior years. And again, I would point to the record of the Saskatchewan Party government. We didn't wait for a pandemic. We didn't wait for an election to invest in healthcare, specifically in long-term care. The community where I live has a new long-term care centre in it alongside 14 other communities across the province. There's more work to do on this front. There's more investment that is needed, and we need a recovering and growing economy to ensure that we're able to continue to make these investments that, quite frankly, the people of this province expect their provincial government to be planning for and making.
Couple more and then Bill, last question.
Do you believe expanding the non-renewable energy sector in Saskatchewan is more important than developing the renewable sector?
Expanding the non-renewable. So listen, there needs to be a balanced approach to this, and we need to understand the global challenge that we're faced with climate change. We are expanding renewables here in the province. We have a wind project that is going up. I believe it's about 250 megawatts down in around Assiniboine right now. We have just looked at releasing prior to coming into the RIT, one of the largest solar RFPs to go out in the province. We have a geothermal test pilot project that is happening down in the Estevan area. But we have also looked at the opportunity that we have to clean up some of the emissions in not only our power generating systems like the carbon capture and storage and ultimately the enhanced oil recovery, but working with our industries here in the province so that they are doing the right thing in reducing their emissions. And I would point to agriculture that is essentially carbon neutral here in the province. I don't know of anywhere else in the world that can make that claim. It's an industry that we should be very proud of because of who it employs. It's an industry that we should be very proud of because of what it is doing and how it is investing in our communities, but it's also an industry that we should be very proud of because of what it is doing from a sustainability perspective. You look at our energy industry and you look at the investment that is happening with the thermal projects in around Lloydminster where they are reducing the methane emissions, and methane we know is 26 times more problematic than carbon dioxide. They're reducing the methane emissions by 45% across the province, even more than that out in the Lloydminster area by investment by an energy company, a number of energy companies, again, producing some of the most sustainable energy products in the world. We would like to provide those products to all Canadians. We would actually like to provide some of those sustainable energy products to people around the world if we could get a pipeline built across this country. That's why I made the comments yesterday around the importance of ensuring that we have access to the Gulf Coast because we don't have access to other Canadians in the eastern portions of our country. So we need to stay focused on on ensuring that we are making the right and proper decisions that are actually reducing emissions, not reducing jobs in our province. What we have in the innovation in our industries, the energy industry, the agriculture industry, the power generation industry, we should be very proud of in Saskatchewan. And what we have are answers to help the world reduce their emissions profile and to address what is a very global challenge, not a Saskatchewan challenge, but a global challenge in reducing our emissions and addressing climate change in a much more meaningful way.
One more.
You mentioned population stagnation. How concerned are you about the most recent population statistics that show a slight decline here, and that's, I think, the first in 14 years, and we're really an outlier other than Newfoundland in terms of our province losing population?
Right. No, and in first in 13 years, I pay attention to that. I also pay attention to the fact that we in this province shut down less of our economy throughout this COVID pandemic, and that was a population statistic that came out during our addressing and response to this pandemic. But we have shut down less of our province, economically speaking, during this pandemic, and we have done so safely. We have also reopened our province as quickly as any other province in Canada, and we have done so safely. Not just the economic function of Saskatchewan, the mines and the agriculture has been moving along not uninterrupted, but less interrupted than other areas. But we have also been able to reopen our healthcare system, our communities, our youth athletics, and we have been able to do so safely, barring a few super spreader events here recently that will be dealt with. And I know that Saskatchewan people will be able to get us back on track to the very low numbers that we have had. So we are now in a situation, I guess, to answer your question, how do I feel about the population numbers that came out that showed its the first decline in over a decade during a global pandemic? I find those concerning. But I also see the opportunity that this province has and how we are poised to seize that opportunity. How we are poised today with the lowest unemployment rate in the nation because of what Saskatchewan people have done. And thank you for lowering the infection rate of COVID-19 so that we are able to have that low unemployment rate. When you look at what we are going to provide the world in the months and the years ahead, the food, the fuel, the fertilizer, the sustainable products that we have to provide the world on a safe, reliable supply chain. And yes, countries and industries are looking at their supply chains. We can be very proud and we can look forward to the opportunity that we might have to not only fully recover the economic fortunes here in Saskatchewan, but the economic opportunity that we might have to get back to growing our economy, starting to achieve the targets that we had put out in the Saskatchewan Plan for Growth, the targets that we know we can achieve in population growth, of increasing our population by 200,000 people, increasing our careers in this province by 100,000. Many of those will be filled by our kids, our neighbors' kids. That's the vision we have for a stronger Saskatchewan, and that's the vision that we hope, with the support of Saskatchewan people, we'll be able to deliver on in the next 4 years. Thank you. Hey, Marv.